If you think you're already familiar with everything there is to know about the crazy world of luxury watches, prepare for the shock of your life. Nowadays, watches can get sold for astronomical amounts at auctions with such relative ease, they'd leave you staggered. Celebrities, auctioneers, stylists, and the average enthusiast all fight neck and neck for a piece of luxury like Audemars Piguet, Mille, or Patek Philippe. Welcome to today's video where we'd be deep diving into the maniac world of luxury timepieces. Think about the watch you desperately want but will likely never acquire for a variety of reasons. With that in mind, what financial boundary are you never ready to cross to achieve it? Would the boundary you just imagined still apply if you were a multi-millionaire? We could go on, but the fact remains that watches that are either one of a kind, remain in severely limited quantities, or are simply owned by a historically significant or famous persona tend to command notable figures, especially during auctions. As more people go into the wealthy bracket with crypto, stocks, and groundbreaking technology being a fruitful endeavor, especially if you have the technical know-how, the sun keeps shining on the watch market. Not only are timepieces solid investments, but also they're easily one of the most recognizable status symbols in today's world. Just have a quick go at the Instagram pages of some of your favorite celebrities. It wouldn't take long before you start to notice a shiny, luxury watch on their wrists. But that as it may, with the expansion of the vintage watch trade, one should expect timepieces to cost more than a penthouse in a thriving city like New York. Still not convinced? Let's go back in time, precisely to December 2021. In the New York watch auction, a large, well-dressed crowd of watch lovers sat with such high anticipation as one would get in line for a star-studded concert. With their minds already set on what they'd hopefully be taking home by the end of the day, all they could do to contain their obvious excitement was to pick up their phones, fiddle around with them, and take some pictures to immortalize the big day. Before continuing, are you aware of what happened just days before the auction? After catalogues had been printed and set off to collectors all around the world, the auction house, Philips, announced a shocking first lot. In case you didn't know, this was none other than the Patek Philippe Nautilus 5711 sports watch in partnership with Tiffany's. Do you know how much they said the timepiece retailed? It was just an excess of $50,000. Now, you don't even need to be told that coughing up a fortune for a watch of this magnitude is far from being difficult for A-list collectors. Moving on, you're probably wondering what makes the Tiffany-collaborated Patek Philippe Nautilus 5711 an interesting watch. Well, here's the reason. Earlier that year, the watch world was stunned to hear that model would be discontinued, especially considering it is the luxury brand's most iconic model ever. Now, did you know Tiffany's iteration was one of the last ever produced? In total, Patek Philippe made only 170 models of its kind. Unless you were one of the lucky people to have had one on your wrists, the game was simple. Go hard by splashing the cash at the last chance saloon, or go home regretting it probably forever. How familiar are you with Oral Bucks? If you didn't know, his company, Bucks & Russo, have been partners with Philips for years, then perhaps you'd know him as a celebrity auctioneer. We're not trying to sing praises, but the fact that he had presided over numerous record-breaking watch sales over the last 20 years or so at 3 major houses speaks volumes. As a matter of fact, he once sold a super rare timepiece previously owned by the Ethiopian Emperor Haile Selassie in 2017. The man is easily an auctioning icon. Would you dare believe the sum Bucks used to open the bidding floor was a mere $20,000? Yep, you heard right. It's a fee less than half of the 5711's retail price. It might sound shocking, but it's all part of the elaborate tactic. During auctions, unbelievably low bids tend to start the process. It's a clever way to generate momentum before the proper bidding commences. With only a little time spent, the price had already reached the 6-figure mark. Not so long after, the same timepiece was receiving bids up to $4.9 million. By the time the bidding was over, with a winner finally emerging, the fee was jaw-dropping. An anonymous online buyer residing in New York City had a winning bid of $5.35 million. It easily became a new record for a Patek Philippe Nautilus. With fees and commissions, the true cost of the timepiece for the buyer is far more impressive. To own this super rare model, you'd have to fork out up to $6.5 million. In all, this is over 100 times more than the watch's retail price. Alas, the watch industry can be quite crazy sometimes. In an unforeseen turn of events, the transaction never actualized. Paul Baltros, an executive at Philips, informed Hodinkee that the item was unable to go to the original winning holder. It's also worth mentioning that no further explanation or reason was stated by Patek Philippe. In the aftermath though, Tiffany's and Patek Philippe sold the watch to Zach Liu. He had the final bid plus fees for $6.2 million. Despite the proceeds of the sale were given to the Nature Conservancy, it seems a bit like a marketing strategy straight out of the luxury timepiece books. After all, Philips, Patek Philippe and LVMH own Tiffany. Some days shortly after the auction, Patek Philippe, an ambassador of Tiffany, was spotted wearing one. Like that wasn't enough reason to be suspicious, LeBron James showed off his model on Instagram. With the rapid pace at which luxury watches have been sought after, things are still looking up. No longer an accessory worn when you are passionate about a brand or the functionalities of the watch, timepieces are one of the perfect investment assets. You can still look stylish wearing them while still being sure you'd get your money's worth in years to come should you sell it. The good thing about rising demand, though, is that the top-of-the-line watchmakers are neither drastically raising their retail prices nor increasing output way too much. After all, the long-term implications of saturating the market can prove to be costly. Models like Rolex Daytona, the Vacheron Constantin overseas, the Royal Oak from Audemars Piguet, and Patek Philippe's Nautilus have a waiting list so long it could take you years before getting your hands on one. As a buyer, the only other way to get the upper hand over the scarcity is to either buy from a second-hand source or go guns blazing at an auction. But even then, reality is once again painted grey. On the one hand, rare vintage models can be seen, some of which may have been previously owned by a famous person and thus connecting you by the wrist to their aura, but there's still one major disadvantage. Whether or not you can openly admit this, the secondary market is insanely uncertain. Given how dealers hardly claim that their authenticity or conditional reports portray something more substantial than an opinion, buying a watch from this source can be risky. Also, the secondary market can be far more expensive than retail. Just take your time and check out the prices of a hyped watch from a secondary dealer or better yet, online. You'd be stunned to see just how expensive they can be. Sometimes it's almost certain that you'd pay multiples of the retail price of that same watch. Face it, you've probably heard watches are status symbols a gazillion times. While that's a pretty accurate analysis, even that comes with its cons. In the big cities, watch-related crimes have been growing by the year. We can't forget in a hurry how 3 men in hoodies once walked up and pointed a gun at an innocent man just sitting at a patio table. The mischievous robbers made away with a Richard Mille RM1103 flyback chronograph that cost over $300,000. In Paris, violent watch thefts have also been on the ascent. Right now, it's getting to a stage where people would be too cautious about their timepieces that they'd be selective of where they'd be appearing with it. William Messina, a renowned New York-based collector, dealer and watchmaker, is already following this train of thought. In his words, "I think twice before wearing something in the subway or late at night." According to him, the rise of the new vice to the watch industry is caused by the exposure luxury watches are now getting. Because of celebrities and especially YouTube, thieves are much more watch aware, he says. Iconic, right? Told you the world of luxury watches was crazy.